My name is Natalie Carter. I'm 34 years old. And the strange thing about regret is that it doesn't hit you all at once. It lingers in quiet moments, in the glow of a phone screen at 2 a.m., in the life you scroll through. That should have been yours. Right now, I'm sitting on the edge of a narrow bed in a studio apartment I can barely afford. The walls are thin. The lights flicker if I turn on too many things at once. And my son, Connor, is asleep just a few feet away from me, curled up like the world hasn't already started disappointing him. I hold my phone tighter than I should, because on the screen is him. Ethan Hayes, black tie event. Perfect smile. A glass of champagne in his hand. A woman beside him, beautiful, calm, looking at him like he's the safest place in the world. The way I used to pretend to. He's worth millions now. Built a company from nothing. Lives in a house I once described to him in half-serious, half-dreaming conversations late at night. And me? I'm working 2 jobs, barely holding everything together, raising a 6-year-old boy whose father doesn't even know he exists. Because I lied. Because I chose wrong. And because 6 years ago, I made a decision that destroyed everything. 7 years ago, I had a different life. A better one. I was 27, dating a man named Ethan Hayes. We'd been together for 3 years, long enough that people had stopped asking if we were getting married and started asking when. We talked about it all the time. Marriage, kids, a house somewhere quiet but close enough to the city. The kind of future that didn't feel like a dream, just something we were slowly building, piece by piece. Ethan was steady. That's the word people always used. Steady, reliable, safe. He worked in tech. Not flashy money, but good money. Enough that we never worried about bills. He drove a sensible car, wore button-ups and khakis, spent weekends reading or coding or talking about investments like it was somehow exciting. He loved me. Completely. The kind of love that didn't need to prove itself because it showed up every single day without fail. He remembered how I took my coffee, checked if I got home safe, kissed my forehead when he thought I was asleep. He had already mapped out our future in his mind, and he would have given me anything I asked for. And I was bored. That's the part I hate admitting the most. There was nothing wrong with him, nothing missing, except something in me kept whispering that this wasn't enough. I didn't want calm. I wanted fire. I wanted the kind of love that felt like chaos, like passion, like something that could burn the world down and make it worth it. And then I met his brother. Aww. Lucas Hayes was 2 years younger than Ethan, 25 to Ethan's 27. And from the moment he walked into the restaurant that night, I felt it. That pull, that immediate, irrational, undeniable attraction. He was everything Ethan wasn't. Tall, effortlessly confident. The kind of man who didn't just enter a room, he owned it. Perfect smile, sharp jawline, expensive watch that caught the light every time he moved his hand. He worked in sales, commission-based, big money when deals landed, leased luxury car, designer clothes, always traveling, always somewhere new. Always exciting. Ethan had invited him to dinner casually, a family thing. They weren't close. Lucas was always moving. Different cities, different deals, different life. But that night, it felt like the entire room disappeared. We talked and laughed. And every time Ethan said something, Lucas would look at me like we were sharing a secret. Like he understood something Ethan didn't. By the end of the night, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Not just how he looked, but how he made me feel. Alive. The text started a few days later. Nothing inappropriate. At first. Just jokes, memes, casual check-ins. How's my brother treating you? You surviving his boring routines? I laughed more than I should have. Responded faster than I should have. I should have told Ethan. I should have set boundaries. I should have stopped it before it became something else. I didn't. 2 months later, Lucas came back into town. Want to grab coffee? He texted. Just us. I want to get to know you better. I stared at the message for a long time. I knew what it was. Or at least, I knew what it could become. But I told myself it was innocent. Just coffee. Just conversation. Just curiosity. It wasn't innocent. We sat there for 3 hours, talking about everything. About Ethan. About my relationship. About what I felt was missing. And Lucas listened in a way that felt dangerous. Like he was taking notes. Like he knew exactly which parts of me were vulnerable. And exactly what to say to reach them. You're too much for someone like him, he said quietly, leaning back in his chair. Ethan's a good guy, but he's predictable, safe. He looked at me then, and there was something in his eyes that made my stomach tighten. You don't need safe, Natalie, he said. You need someone who matches your energy, My heart was already betraying me, because he wasn't saying anything I hadn't already been thinking. He was just giving me permission. A week later, he asked me to meet him again. A hotel bar. One night, he said, "I'm only in town for a few hours." I told Ethan I was meeting a friend. The first real lie in 3 years. And once I said it, something shifted. Something cracked open inside me. The bar was dim, the music low, the kind of place where everything feels like it's happening just slightly outside reality. We had drinks. We talked. We flirted in ways that stopped pretending to be harmless. And at some point, I stopped thinking about consequences. Stopped thinking about Ethan. Stopped thinking about anything except how I felt in that moment. Wanted. Excited. Alive. I went upstairs with Lucas, into a hotel room that didn't belong to either of us. And I made a choice. A real one. Not an accident. Not a misunderstanding. A decision. I slept with my boyfriend's brother, while still wearing the promise ring Ethan had given me. Afterward, I lay there staring at the ceiling, my heart racing, my mind already trying to rewrite what had just happened. It was a mistake, I told myself. A one-time thing, something I'll regret and never do again. I saw him again the next time he came to town, and the time after that, and the time after that. 3 months. That's how long it lasted. 3 months of lies. 3 months of hotel rooms and excuses and carefully constructed stories. Every time Lucas texted, I answered. Every time he came back, I went to him. And every time I left, I told myself I deserved this. That this was what I had been missing. That this was what happiness was supposed to feel like. Aww. Ethan never suspected, never questioned me, never doubted me. Because in 3 years, I had never given him a reason to. And that's what makes what I did even worse. Because the man I was betraying trusted me completely. And I used that trust to destroy him. 3 months later, everything changed. I was standing in a gas station bathroom, holding a pregnancy test in my shaking hand, staring at 2 pink lines that felt like the world collapsing in slow motion. Because I knew exactly what it meant. I had been sleeping with both of them, careful with Ethan, reckless with Lucas. And deep down, I already knew the truth I wasn't ready to say out loud. My life wasn't just complicated anymore. It was about to implode. And the worst part? I still had a choice. Tell the truth, or lie, and hope I could outrun the consequences forever. I chose the lie. And that was the moment everything was truly destroyed. I called Lucas first. Of course I did. Not because he deserved to know before Ethan. Not because I was being honest. But because even then, even with 2 pink lines in my hand and panic crawling up my throat, I was still thinking like someone who believed excitement would save her. He answered on the 3rd ring. His voice was easy, relaxed, like my world wasn't splitting open. Hey, beautiful. I could barely breathe. I'm pregnant. Silence. Not shocked silence. Not the kind that comes when life changes. Just stillness, cold and waiting. Then he exhaled. You're dating Ethan. I gripped the sink harder. Lucas, listen to me. The timing is your problem, Natalie. My stomach dropped. It could be yours. He laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp, disbelieving sound that made something in me go numb. Might be, he said. Probably is, but I'm not doing this. What does that mean? It means I don't want kids. I don't want a relationship. And I definitely don't want to blow up my brother's life over your bad decisions. Our decisions, I snapped, the words breaking out before I could stop them. He went quiet for half a second. Then his voice turned flat. No, yours. You're the one who has a boyfriend. You're the one carrying the baby. Tell Ethan it's his. Or don't. But leave me out of it. Lucas! He hung up. Just like that. No comfort, no plan, no guilt. I called back twice. Straight to voicemail. Then I texted. Nothing. An hour later, I realized he had blocked my number. I sat on the bathroom floor with my knees pulled to my chest, staring at that blank screen, finally seeing him clearly for the first time. All the charm, all the confidence, all the heat. And underneath it, nothing. No loyalty, no courage, no love. Just a man who knew how to feel thrilling, while responsibility still belonged to someone else. I should have told Ethan the truth that night. I should have gone to his apartment, sat him down, and admitted all of it. The affair, the pregnancy, the possibility that the child I was carrying might belong to his brother. I should have let him hate me honestly. Instead, I chose something worse. I chose strategy. That night, I went to Ethan's place wearing a soft sweater he loved, the one he once said made me look like home. He opened the door and smiled immediately, and that smile nearly undid me. Hey, he said, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. I was about to order dinner. You okay? You look pale. I almost said it then. I almost let the truth out while there was still time for it to matter. But then he touched my face so gently, so instinctively, And all I could think was, if I tell him now, everything ends tonight. So I lied. I told him I'd had a hard day. I told him I needed him. I told him I wanted to be close to him. And Ethan, kind, unsuspecting Ethan, gave me exactly what I asked for. He held me like I was something precious, kissed me like we still had a future untouched by betrayal, whispered that he loved me against my hair while I stared over his shoulder and felt my own soul shrinking. I made sure it was memorable. That was the ugliest part. I made sure he would remember that night, so that when I told him about the baby 2 weeks later, the timeline would feel clean. Simple, safe. I walked into his apartment with the positive test in my purse and a performance already prepared in my chest. He saw my face and stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. What happened? I pulled out the test. His eyes dropped to it, then back to me, then down again, like his brain had to read reality twice before it could accept it. Natalie, I nodded, forcing tears I didn't have to force for long. I'm pregnant. For one suspended second, I saw 100 emotions flash across his face. Shock, fear, disbelief. Then something softer. Something almost holy. You're sure? I nodded again. The protection must have failed. That was the lie. Small and neat and devastating. He covered his mouth with one hand. His eyes filled immediately. I will never forget that. I will never forget the sight of the man I was betraying looking at me like I had just handed him the world. He laughed once under his breath, shaky and overwhelmed, then pulled me into his arms so tightly I could barely inhale. Oh my God, he whispered. We're having a baby. I stood there in his embrace, my face against his shoulder, and felt guilt move through me like poison. But even then, I didn't stop. He pulled back and looked at me with tears in his eyes. We're going to figure this out, he said. Whatever this changes, whatever we need, we'll figure it out together. I've got you, okay? I've got both of you. Both of you. I almost broke. Instead, I nodded and let him believe me. After that, things moved fast. A month later, Ethan proposed. Technically, I think he had already planned to. The ring didn't feel rushed. The details were too thoughtful, the speech too practiced in that sweet, nervous Ethan way. The baby had just accelerated the timeline. He proposed in the living room of his apartment on a quiet Friday night, candles on the coffee table, dinner half finished because he said he couldn't wait any longer. I was going to do this later, he told me, smiling through obvious nerves. Something bigger, something more romantic. But honestly, I don't want another day of my life to pass without knowing you're going to be my wife. Then he got down on one knee, and my chest tightened so hard I thought I might collapse. He looked up at me with that same open love, that same unwavering certainty. I love you, Natalie. I love this baby already. I love the life we're building. Marry me. I said yes. Of course I did. What else was I going to do? Tell him the truth with a diamond ring in his hand? So I let him slide that ring onto my finger while my future rotted beneath the surface. His family was thrilled. His mother cried. His father hugged him so hard he nearly lost balance. People called us blessed, lucky, meant to be. And every congratulations felt like a punishment I hadn't earned the right to complain about. Lucas never called. Never texted. Never acknowledged the pregnancy. At first, I kept checking my phone, expecting some sign that he would come back into the story and force me to face what I had done. He didn't. He simply vanished. Ethan noticed, of course. Lucas has been weird lately, he said one night while assembling a crib catalog on the couch beside me. He barely answers calls. He skipped dinner with my parents again. I kept my eyes on the page. Maybe he's busy. Ethan frowned. Yeah, maybe. Then, after a pause, did something happen between you two? At dinner? Or after? I don't know. He just got distant. My whole body went cold. No, I said too quickly. Then softer. No. Why would something happen? He looked at me for a second longer than I could stand, then shook his head. I don't know. Forget it. But he didn't forget it. I could tell. Not because he suspected the truth. Ethan's mind didn't move in cruel directions unless he had reason to, but because he felt the shift, the silence, the strange absence where a brother used to be. And I said nothing. The pregnancy moved forward, and Ethan was perfect. That word again, perfect. He came to every appointment he could, read parenting books and highlighted passages, argued with customer service reps for 2 days, because the nursery chair we ordered had the wrong fabric, put one hand on my stomach at night, and talked to the baby in this soft, earnest voice that always made my throat ache. Your mom is stubborn, he told my belly one evening, grinning when I rolled my eyes. But she's beautiful, and she's smarter than both of us, so don't team up against me when you get here. I laughed because he wanted me to. Then I went into the bathroom afterward and cried where he couldn't see me. Because every kind thing he did made me feel smaller. Every dream he spoke out loud became another thing I knew I was stealing from him. By the 7th month, I was barely sleeping. Every time Ethan touched my stomach with that look in his eyes, I imagined a clock ticking somewhere just outside the room. Because lies like mine don't stay quiet forever. They wait. And one Tuesday afternoon, at a routine ultrasound appointment, that waiting ended. Ethan couldn't come. There was some emergency at work, and he apologized 3 times before I even got off the phone. I hate missing this, he said. Text me the second you get out. I want pictures. Okay, I told him. I went alone. The room was cold, dim, the kind of clinical quiet that makes your own breathing sound too loud. The technician moved the wand across my stomach, taking measurements, clicking keys, studying the screen. At first, everything seemed normal. Then she paused. Not dramatically, not in a movie way, just a small pause, a glance at the monitor, a tiny shift in her expression. Is the father here today? She asked. My heart started pounding. No, why? She adjusted something on the screen. Nothing definitive, I just need to ask. Have you done any prenatal genetic testing? My mouth went dry. No. She gave a careful, professional smile that somehow made it worse. There are some markers we sometimes follow up on. It can be completely harmless, but if there's any uncertainty about family history or paternity, your doctor may recommend further testing. Paternity. The word didn't echo in the room. It detonated inside me. I think I nodded. I think I asked 1 or 2 questions. I don't remember. What I remember is walking out into the parking lot with shaking hands and sitting in my car for nearly 40 minutes, because I was suddenly aware, with terrifying clarity, that my lie had a timeline. That science did not care about my panic. That facts were coming. That one test, one question, one doctor who looked too closely, and everything would collapse. That night, Ethan came over with takeout from my favorite Thai place and a tiny pair of baby socks he'd bought on impulse because they were too cute to leave behind. I looked at him standing in my kitchen, smiling, holding something small and hopeful in his hands, and I knew I was out of time. Still, I didn't tell the truth. I wish I could say I tried. I didn't. I chose cowardice again. We need to talk, I said. His smile faded immediately. Okay. I sat across from him at the kitchen table, twisting the ring on my finger so hard it hurt. I don't know if we should get married. He stared at me. What? I'm overwhelmed, I said, each word sounding thinner than the last. Everything is happening too fast. The baby, the wedding. I don't think I'm ready. He looked like I had slapped him. Natalie, where is this coming from? I don't know. That's not an answer. I looked down, couldn't hold his eyes. If I did, the truth would come out. And even then, I still wasn't ready to pay for it. He leaned forward, voice softer now, more scared than angry. Did I do something wrong? No. Then what changed? I said the cruelest thing possible. I need space. He sat back slowly, like he'd been physically pushed. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he asked, very quietly, what about the baby? I closed my eyes for half a second. What about the baby? I repeated. Am I still... He stopped, swallowed, tried again. Am I still going to be this child's father? That question nearly broke me open, because the answer, the real answer, was I didn't know, and I had built his entire life around pretending I did. We'll figure it out, I said. We'll be good parents, even if we're not together. Even now, I can hear how vague that sounded. How wrong. How cowardly. He stared at me with tears gathering in his eyes, confusion turning to pain so deep it made him look younger somehow, less guarded, more human. I don't understand, he whispered. And I let him keep not understanding. 3 days later, I gave him back the ring. He held it in his palm and looked at it for a long time before closing his fingers around it. He didn't beg the second time. That was somehow worse. He just nodded once, jaw tight, as if he were trying to survive the moment with whatever dignity I hadn't already taken from him. If this is really what you want, he said, I won't force you to stay. I wanted him to yell, wanted him to accuse me, wanted him to make me the villain out loud so I wouldn't have to carry that alone. But Ethan had never been cruel, even when I deserved it. That was the last time I saw him before the birth. 2 months later, I went into labor alone. I had changed my number by then, moved to a different apartment, cut every line between us because disappearing felt easier than being confronted by what I had done. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. No hand to hold, no one timing contractions, no one whispering that I could do this. Just me, and pain, and consequence. Hours later, they placed a baby boy on my chest. I looked down at him through tears and shock and that strange, hollow love that arrives at the exact same moment as terror. And I knew. Before anyone said anything, before logic had time to organize itself, I knew. He had Lucas's eyes, Lucas's mouth, Lucas written all over that tiny face in ways no lie on earth could erase. Not Ethan's. Never Ethan's. I named him Connor. And as I held him there in that hospital bed, listening to him cry for the first time, one truth settled over me with terrifying calm. I hadn't just ruined my relationship. I had destroyed the only stable future I had ever been offered. And now I was going to raise the proof of that alone. Connor was 6 months old the first time I looked Ethan up again. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe I thought he'd be broken. Maybe I thought I'd see some version of him that looked the way I felt. Tired, hollow, struggling to rebuild something after it had been ripped apart. Instead, he looked fine. Better than fine. Happy. It was just a photo at first. A simple one. Him standing in what looked like an office space, sleeves rolled up, whiteboard behind him covered in diagrams and notes. The caption was short. Taking a risk, building something from the ground up. A startup. I remember staring at that sentence longer than I should have. Because even then, even at my lowest, part of me recognized what it meant. Ethan wasn't the kind of man who did things halfway. If he was building something, it was going to succeed. I told myself it didn't matter, that he was better off without me, that I had made the right choice. That lie lasted about a year. Because over the next 6 years, I watched his life become everything I had once imagined for myself. And mine became something I barely recognized. Raising Connor alone wasn't one moment of struggle. It was thousands of small ones. The kind no one claps for. The kind no one sees. Late nights with a crying baby and no one to hand him off to. Early mornings after 3 hours of sleep because bills didn't care how tired I was. 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to keep a roof over our heads and food in the fridge. There were days I didn't eat so Connor could. Days I smiled through exhaustion because he deserved a mother who didn't look like she was falling apart. And through all of it, I kept telling myself this was the price, that this was what I had earned. That if I just worked hard enough, long enough, maybe it would stabilize. Maybe I could give him something close to normal. But life doesn't balance itself just because you want it to. It tilts, and sometimes it keeps tilting until you realize you're already falling. Ethan's company grew faster than I expected. Investors, interviews, articles. Then one day, an announcement. They had gone public. I didn't understand all the details. I didn't need to. Because every headline said the same thing in different ways. Ethan Hayes was a millionaire. By 32. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, this same bed, staring at an article that listed his net worth like it was just another fact. Like it didn't represent the life I had walked away from. Like it didn't represent the future I had traded for something that didn't even exist anymore. He bought a house not long after that. A big one. Modern, clean lines, huge windows. The kind of house we used to describe late at night, half joking, half serious. I want a kitchen with an island, I had told him once. Big enough that we don't bump into each other when we cook. He had smiled. Done. What else? Natural light, lots of it. Done. A backyard, for kids. He had paused there, softer. How many? I had laughed. Let's start with 1. That house had all of it. Everything I had once asked for. Everything he had quietly promised to build. He just built it without me. Connor started asking about his father when he was 4. At first, it was simple questions. Where's my dad? Does he work far away? Does he know me? I gave simple answers. Careful ones. He doesn't know about you yet. It's complicated. We'll talk about it when you're older. But kids don't stop asking questions just because the answers are uncomfortable. They notice things. Other kids with dads at school pick up. Father's Day cards. Conversations that don't include them. By the time he turned 6, the questions weren't simple anymore. They were heavy. Why doesn't my dad want me? I wasn't ready for that one. I don't think I'll ever be. 3 months ago, everything started falling apart faster than I could fix it. I lost one of my jobs. Company downsizing. No warning, no backup plan. Just a short meeting and a polite explanation that didn't change the reality of what it meant. Half my income, gone. Rent didn't adjust to that. Bills didn't adjust. Life didn't pause to let me figure it out. It just kept moving while I started slipping behind. Connor came home from school one afternoon quieter than usual. I knew something was wrong before he even took his shoes off. What happened? I asked gently. He shrugged. Nothing. That word again. The one kids use when something is very, very wrong. I waited. Didn't push. Eventually, he sat down on the couch and stared at his hands. They're having a father-son day at school, he said. My chest tightened. Oh, they said we can bring our dads, or uncles, or grandpas. I nodded slowly. That sounds nice. He didn't look up. I told them my dad was busy. The way he said it, like he was already learning how to cover for something that wasn't his fault, made something inside me crack. That was okay, I said softly. Sometimes dads are busy. He finally looked at me. Is my dad busy? I swallowed hard. He doesn't know about you, remember? He nodded, but his eyes filled anyway. Other kids' dads know about them. I moved closer to him, pulling him into my arms as he started crying. There's a specific kind of pain that comes from watching your child hurt because of something you did. It doesn't feel like guilt. It feels like punishment, like something you can't undo, no matter how much you wish you could. There's nothing wrong with you, I whispered into his hair. Nothing. This isn't your fault. Then why doesn't he want me? I closed my eyes. Because the truth was worse than anything I could say out loud. Because the truth was that his father didn't want responsibility. And the man who would have wanted him, I had driven away. We'll figure it out, I said instead. I promise. I didn't know how to keep that promise. But 2 weeks later, I tried anyway. I sat in my car outside Ethan's office building for almost an hour, hands on the steering wheel, heart racing, trying to decide if I was really going to do this. Because once I walked in, there was no going back. No pretending I had control over the situation anymore. Just truth, or whatever version of truth I was finally ready to admit. The building was exactly what you'd expect. Glass, steel, clean lines, security desk in the lobby. Everything about it screamed success. Stability, the life I could have had. I walked in anyway. The receptionist looked up with a polite smile. Can I help you? I'm here to see Ethan Hayes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Do you have an appointment? No, but you can tell him Natalie Carter is here. It's important. She hesitated, then nodded and made a call. A minute later, she hung up and gave me a professional smile. I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes is in a meeting. Can I take a message? I left my number, told her it was urgent, told myself he would call. He didn't. I came back a week later. Same building, same receptionist. This time she recognized me. Her smile was tighter. I'm sorry, she said before I even spoke. Mr. Hayes has requested not to be disturbed. That stung more than I expected. But I understood. Of course I did. I had disappeared from his life without explanation. Destroyed everything we had. And now I was showing up 6 years later, asking for his attention, like I had any right to it. Still, I wasn't ready to give up. So I went to his house, the one from the photos, the one I already knew too well without ever stepping inside. I stood on the front porch for a long moment, staring at the door, wondering how many different versions of my life had ended with me standing somewhere else instead. Then I rang the doorbell. She answered. Clara. I knew it was her immediately. She was even more beautiful in person, not in a dramatic way. In a quiet, effortless way. The kind of beauty that didn't demand attention, but held it anyway. Can I help you? She asked, polite but cautious. I need to speak with Ethan, I said. Her expression shifted slightly. He's not interested in speaking with you. That told me everything. He had told her about me. Of course he had. It's important, I said. Please. She studied my face for a moment longer. Then, what is this about? I hesitated. Because once I said it, everything would change. It's about his son. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Ethan doesn't have a son. He might. That was enough. She closed the door. I heard voices inside. Muffled at first, then sharper, then footsteps. The door opened again, and there he was. Ethan Hayes, 6 years older, sharper, harder, controlled in a way he had never needed to be before. He looked at me like I was a stranger. What do you want, Natalie? My throat tightened. I need to talk to you about Connor. His expression didn't change. I don't have anything to say to you. You might, I said quietly. Connor is 6. A flicker. Small, fast, gone almost immediately. You remember when I was pregnant? I continued. When we broke up? His jaw tightened. I remember you disappearing. I had the baby. I assumed that. My hands were shaking. He might be yours. Silence. Not confusion. Not shock. Just stillness. Then he laughed. A short, bitter sound that felt like it cut through the air between us. You show up after 6 years, he said, voice cold. And tell me I might have a son? I didn't know how to tell you. You didn't try. I was scared. You disappeared, he repeated, sharper now. Changed your number. Moved. I tried to find you for months. That hit harder than anything he had said so far, because I hadn't known that. Or maybe I had, and chosen not to think about it. I'm here now, I said weakly. And you need money, he said immediately. The accuracy of it made me flinch. I need help, I admitted. Connor deserves better than what I can give him right now. And you think that's my responsibility? He asked. If he's yours, might be, he cut in. You said might. I didn't answer, because there was no answer that didn't make everything worse. His eyes darkened. Who else? My stomach dropped. It doesn't matter. It matters, he said, voice low now. Dangerous. Who else were you sleeping with while we were engaged? I looked down, couldn't meet his eyes, because saying it out loud made it real in a way I had avoided for years. "Lucas," I whispered. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything else. Then, "My brother?" I nodded. "I'm sorry." It sounded pathetic, small, meaningless compared to what it actually represented. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me at all, like the person standing in front of him was someone he had never known. "Get off my property," he said. "Ethan." "Get off my property," he repeated, louder now, "or I'm calling the police." "Please." "You lied, you cheated with my brother, you disappeared with a child that might be mine, and now you show up here asking for money?" Each word hit like a strike. "You are not welcome here," he said. "Not in my house, not in my life." "If he's yours." "If he's mine," he said coldly, "we'll handle it through lawyers, through DNA tests, not like this." Then he stepped back and closed the door. I stood there for a long time after that, listening to the locks click into place, knowing that whatever chance I thought I had was gone. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived, and everything I had been avoiding for 6 years finally caught up to me. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. Thick paper, official seal. My name printed in a font that looked too clean, too precise for the kind of mess it was about to confirm. Henderson and Associates, Family Law. I already knew. Before I opened it, I knew. Because Ethan wasn't the kind of man who left things unfinished, and I had just forced him to reopen something he had spent 6 years trying to bury. Inside was exactly what I deserved. A formal petition for paternity testing. A court order. Clear instructions. Connor and I were to submit DNA samples within 30 days. Everything would be handled through legal channels. No direct contact. No exceptions. No trust. I sat at the small table in our apartment, still barely holding on to it at that point, and read every word twice. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I needed to feel the weight of it. This was what accountability looked like. Cold, structured, unemotional. Exactly how it should have been from the beginning. The testing facility smelled like disinfectant and quiet judgment. Connor held my hand the entire time. "Why are we here?" he asked, looking up at me with those same eyes that had haunted me since the day he was born. Lucas's eyes. "We're just doing some tests," I said. "Medical stuff." "Will it hurt?" "No, baby, just a little swab." He nodded, trusting me. That trust, it never got easier to carry. They swabbed his cheek first. He winced slightly, then looked at me like it was over. "That's it?" he asked. "That's it," the nurse smiled. Then it was my turn. I sat there, letting them take my sample, feeling like every quiet moment in that room was another layer of truth peeling itself open. Connor swung our joined hands as we walked out. "Can we get ice cream?" he asked. I nodded. Because what else could I do? Say no to the one small thing I could still give him? The results took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of waking up with dread already sitting in my chest. 2 weeks of watching Connor play, laugh, ask questions, while knowing that something final was coming, something that would define the rest of our lives. The second envelope came on a Tuesday. Same paper, same weight. I waited until Connor was asleep before opening it, sat at the edge of his bed for a long moment, watching him breathe, before walking into the other room. Because whatever was inside, I didn't want him to see my face when I read it. I opened it slowly. Read the first line, then the second, and everything inside me just stopped. Ethan Hayes was not the biological father. There it was, clear, final, unarguable, which meant I closed my eyes, because I didn't need the rest of the document to tell me what I already knew. Connor's father was Lucas, the man who had laughed, the man who had disappeared, the man who had never wanted him. I sat there for a long time, the paper trembling slightly in my hands, because this wasn't just confirmation. It was closure, not the kind that heals, the kind that seals something shut forever. Ethan was gone, completely, not just emotionally, legally, permanently. The one man who would have loved Connor like his own was never going to be part of our lives again, because I had made sure of that. Matt. There was one more page, a handwritten note. I recognized his handwriting immediately. Careful, precise, controlled. I almost didn't read it. Part of me wanted to leave it folded, untouched. Like maybe if I didn't see the words, they wouldn't hurt as much. But I owed him that, at least that. Natalie, I'm not Connor's father. The DNA proves that. But for 3 months before you disappeared, I believed he was. I loved him. I planned for him. I imagined a life where I got to be his dad. My hands tightened around the page, because I could see it. Every moment he had spent talking to my stomach. Every plan, every dream, all of it, real to him. All of it, something I had stolen. You took that from me. You took 6 years of potential fatherhood from me with lies. I could have been in his life. I could have helped. I could have been the man he's asking about, but you chose to lie instead. Tears blurred the words. I wiped them away and kept reading, because stopping would have been another form of avoidance. And I was done avoiding. Connor deserves better than this. He deserves honesty, stability, a parent who puts him first. I hope someday you become that parent, but I can't be part of your life anymore. I can't trust you. I can't help you. You made that impossible. I wish him well. I wish you nothing. Ethan. I read it 5 times, each time slower than the last, each time feeling something inside me break in a slightly different place. Because he wasn't wrong about any of it.
Shaki.
The next day, I tried to find Lucas. I didn't expect much, but I had to try. For Connor, I found him on LinkedIn. Same job, same perfect smile in his profile picture. Like nothing had changed. Like 6 years hadn't passed. Like he hadn't left a child behind without a second thought. I sent him a message. Told him everything. About Connor. About the DNA results. About the fact that he had a son. I asked if he wanted to meet him. He replied 3 hours later. Short, direct, unapologetic. I told you 6 years ago I didn't want kids. That hasn't changed. You chose to keep the pregnancy. You chose to raise him alone. That's your responsibility, not mine. Don't contact me again. Then he blocked me. Again. Like he always did when things became real. Connor's father didn't want him. Ethan, the man who would have wanted him, couldn't trust me. And I was left standing in the middle of that truth with nothing but consequences. That night, I sat Connor down after dinner. My hands were shaking. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally had to stop hiding behind vague answers. Connor, I said softly, we need to talk about your dad. His eyes lit up instantly. Did you find him? I swallowed. I found him. Can I meet him? The hope in his voice almost destroyed me. I reached for his hand. He can't be in your life right now. The light in his eyes flickered. Why? He's not ready to be a dad. That doesn't make sense, he said, frowning. You were ready to be a mom. I didn't have an answer for that. Because there wasn't one that a 6-year-old deserved to hear. It's complicated, I said gently, but it's not about you. You didn't do anything wrong. He stared at the floor. Does he not want me? There it was. The question every child should never have to ask. I forced myself not to lie. Because lies were what got us here. He doesn't know how to be the dad you deserve, I said carefully. And that's his failure, not yours. Connor's lip trembled. Will he ever want me? I hesitated. Just for a second, because giving him false hope would have been easier. Kinder in the moment, but cruel in the long run. I don't know, baby. He started crying. Quiet at first, then harder. Is something wrong with me? I pulled him into my arms immediately. No, nothing is wrong with you. You are perfect. This is my fault, not yours. That was the truth, the only one that mattered. He fell asleep in my arms that night, tears still drying on his cheeks. And I sat there long after he was asleep, staring at the ceiling, finally understanding the full weight of what I had done.
Bitch.
Life didn't get easier after that. If anything, it got worse. Work hours increased. Money got tighter. Eventually, it wasn't enough. We got the eviction notice on a Thursday. 30 days. 3 months of unpaid rent. Almost $5,000 I didn't have. I tried everything. Assistance programs. Payment plans. Selling anything I owned that had value. It wasn't enough. 2 weeks later, we were living in a motel. 1 room, 2 beds. A weekly rate I could barely keep up with. Connor asked questions. I gave softer versions of the truth. We're just staying here for a little while. It's like an adventure. He didn't believe me. He was 6. Not stupid. Yesterday, I saw Ethan's Instagram again. He was engaged. To Clara, the woman who had answered the door. The woman who hadn't deserved to be pulled into any of this. The ring was beautiful. The photo, perfect. They looked happy. Not performative happy. Real. The kind of happiness that comes from stability, from trust, from choosing the right person. Connor asked me something today, out of nowhere. Do you regret having me? The question hit harder than anything else, because it went straight to the one place I hadn't allowed myself to question. I shook my head immediately. No, never. You are the best thing in my life. That part was true. Completely. Then he asked the question that followed it. Do you regret everything else? I closed my eyes for a second, because there was no point pretending anymore. Yes, I said quietly. I regret everything else. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. I wish you picked the other man. So do I. Every single day. I had 2 brothers. One who loved me. One who excited me. One who would have built a life with me. One who gave me nothing. I chose wrong. And that choice didn't just destroy me. It destroyed Connor's chance at having a father who wanted him. It destroyed Ethan's chance at being a father to a child he would have loved. It destroyed a future that could have been real, stable, happy. Now, Ethan is building that life with someone else, and he deserves it. Lucas is somewhere out there, living his life without consequences. And Connor is here with me. The mother who lied, the mother who chose wrong, the mother who has to live every day knowing that everything he's missing started with her. That's my story. That's my reality. That's what happens when you choose excitement over love, when you lie instead of facing the truth, when you mistake attention for connection.
是难解。
You don't just lose the person you hurt, you lose the life you could have had forever.